Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining and welcome back to Wall Street Silver. Joining us today is Gianni Kovacevic, an investor and author who started various successful companies in the junior mining sector. Gianni, welcome to Wall Street Silver.
Nice to be with you here in December in the midst of tax loss selling season.
Yeah, I wanted to get you on to talk about that. So many things, lithium, EV, tax loss. But let's start with that. What's concerning you, or what's on your mind with the tax loss?
Well, as people have probably heard many times in the course of a lifetime following speculations, when the Chinese draw the character for crisis, if you continue to draw that character, it becomes the word opportunity. And as we've seen many times in the past, when tax loss selling is very pronounced and stocks are crushed, often you see a rebound on the other side, and that because it's worth a lot for someone.
Right.
I'll give you an example. You introduced me as a fellow that started various companies. I was the founder of Copper Bank, which became Faraday. And then I'm no longer involved with the company, but very happy to see the success that's been met there. I'm also a founder and very large shareholder of Lithium Bank. And if you look at Lithium Bank's trajectory, it's been trading for 2.5 years. And the stock has just been crushed this year. Yeah, it's a lithium based company, but where did the financings occur? You have to look at that, the fingerprints of who paid what for what stock.
Right.
49 million shares outstanding in reverse order. They raised capital at $1.90, $9.5 million, $1.50, $8.5 million, 3 million at $1, and 4.5 million at 80 cents. They also sold a project earlier this year for $15 million in cash.
Wow.
49 million shares outstanding, currently trading at 27 cents. And people would say, well, who sells a share for 27 cents when they've paid so much for their stock? It's the tax loss. It's worth something to them. So if
Mm,
someone bought 100,000 shares at $1.50 for 150 grand, if they're Canadian or American, even Germans, they're now, if they sell that stock today at $28,000, the tax loss is worth real money for them. And
right.
this is the rationale, but that's an opportunity I would submit to people.
That's so interesting. If they're going to make that benefit for them for that tax loss, like how big does it have to be for them to have to see that benefit as a tax loss? Like if you're just losing a small amount, can you get that benefit, or no? It has to be on a large scale.
Well, there's two components that work together. One is the actual numbers. If there's a 10-cent differential, for example, of whatever share you bought, it's not really worth a lot to you. Why
Right.
sell it? But when you've made gains perhaps elsewhere in the portfolio, now that tax loss for that in that example I just gave you is 130,000, $125,000. It's real money. And if
Hmm.
you've made money elsewhere in the portfolio, you have to wait 30 days for that to rebuy the stock. So once
Right.
someone has taken this tax loss, they can wait 30 days, which is why we often see people buy these shares back in the year after.
Are you seeking a secure, truly offshore solution to protect your wealth? Whether you're invested in gold, silver, or other precious metals, strategic wealth preservation is the strategic storage choice. Located in the Cayman Islands, SWP offers a state-of-the-art 6,000 square foot facility, purpose-built to safeguard your assets with unparalleled security and privacy. Why choose the Cayman Islands? This premier jurisdiction has zero taxes on stored precious metals, no reporting requirements, and complete peace of mind, making it the ideal solution for investors looking to diversify internationally. At SWP, your metals are fully segregated, allocated, and insured. You can buy online or in person. Plus, SWP has a dedicated logistics team that facilitates the global transportation of your precious metals from almost anywhere in the world. Learn more about SWP and how they can help secure your precious metals offshore. Visit swpcayman.com or call them today, and the link will be in the description below. Thanks.
Time also matters. If you do this in February or March, there's no real benefit for you for a whole year, for a whole calendar year. Whereas if you do it at the end of the year, like this year, you get that next year with the buy ticket of the stock.
Right.
And I would submit to people this is something that's a real and present opportunity or a real present speculation to look at this time. It's really pronounced.
Absolutely. Now, before we were recording, we were talking about not only tax loss, but we were talking about EVs and lithium. What can you tell us about EVs? What's on your mind?
My friend Don Cox used to say, never focus on the story on page one. That's the
Right.
efficient market. Look at the story that's buried on page 16 or in some, rare analytic report that's going to eventually be on page one.
Right.
If you ask the Joe average on the street, they're going to tell you the EV markets have been decimated, sales are terrible, nothing's happening. All I hear about is now Volkswagen and Ford, and these guys are not going to make EVs or making far fewer cars. This is why the price of lithium has collapsed.
Hmm.
Not true. Now, the price of lithium has collapsed. It had a high of about 80,000. LCE, it's trading now about 10,000. And LCE is a number they sort of conglomerate to have one unit of measure for the
Mhm.
various different prices between lithium carbonate and hydroxide and what have you. But what's really going on, statistically speaking? The numbers are almost parabolic. China, in the last 4 months, most people don't know this, for the last 4 months, they have sold more electric or plug-in hybrid vehicles than gasoline 4 months in a row.
Wow.
China is the world's largest automotive market, about 28 million units. So they're selling, October was about 2.25 million cars, light vehicles, more EVs than gasoline. And that happened in the last 4 months. When we look at the growth there in China, which is the world's largest market for car sales and for EVs, the CAGR growth rate's growing like 20%, 25%.
Wow.
The bad news is happening in the United States, where we've had this a bit of a hiccup, perhaps, on the take up. And a large part of that is because of the components. A large part of that is these tariffs. The politicians from one side of the mouth, they say, we want you to drive green cars, and we're talking about, in Canada, carbon tax, and we'll be green and no emissions. And at the other side of the mouth, what do? They put a tariff on people that are trying to import electric vehicles into Canada, the United States.
It
You
makes
can't
no
have it both
sense.
ways. But that's not where the action is. The action is happening in emerging markets, in China, in Europe, and at the bottom of the list of those categories is the United States.
Wow.
So look at that story. The demand for lithium is going to continue to climb. The CAGR growth rate is going to be very strong, 15, 20% for the next sort of 10 or 15 years. Another interesting data point. People are very concerned that the chemistry of the battery is going to change. So we've seen a shift from the more sophisticated lithium-ion batteries, NMC and what have you, where if
Right.
you recall, cobalt and nickel and all these other metals are combined with the lithium.
Right.
And we've went to the LFP, the lithium iron phosphate battery, but the L stands for lithium. So if you look at the NMC type of batteries, about 10% of the weight would be lithium.
Right.
LFP, 7 or 8%, right? So there's not
Right.
much
Right.
change there. The bottom line is the demand of lithium will continue to grow. If you take it one step further, and people say, well, hold on a second, what about the future? What about solid state batteries? Google it. When you look at the chemistry composition of 20 various types of potential solid state batteries, the first element that happens in every single battery, Li, lithium,
Oh,
will
really?
continue to be used, right? So don't lose any sleep at night there. You want to be looking at that EVs, the electric car, it's happening, I would say, as expected. Maybe a little bit of disappointment in the United States, but elsewhere in the world, it's climbing at a very good clip, 15% or more CAGR growth rate.
Wow.
And we also look at the oversupply of lithium, which we're having right now, and people maybe didn't see, but companies like CATL, one of the largest battery makers in the world and chemical providers, they were providing these chemicals at a discount, losing money to keep
Why?
market share. This is not sustainable.
Right.
And we'll see what happens when the Trump presidency comes in. But they're going to have to be sourcing these things. I'm talking the Europeans, the North American market. They're going to have to start sourcing these products closer to home. That's a
Right.
story that's going to be on page one of your newspaper. Not tomorrow, not early 2025, but it's coming. And at the same time, you have the opportunity to buy decimated, lithium shares that are down 90, 95%, including a blue chip like Albemarle, went from
Wow.
$300 a share to 75, back up now to about 100. And Lithium Bank, which as I've already alluded to, IPO'd at $1.50 2.5 years ago, raised money at all those high prices, never raised money at these low levels, never had to. Tax loss is probably the reason why, trading at 27, 28 cents, 49 million shares outstanding. I would submit to people that is a very interesting speculation to be looking at this time of the year.
Yeah, no, it's such a like it's such an eye opener when you come on and tell us what's the future outlook for lithium and these other metals because it's yeah, it's so interesting to see, like on one side of the world we're saying, oh, like what you just said in Canada, carbon tax everything, but then they put tariffs on on green vehicles and electric
The
vehicles
thing to make it
coming in.
possible.
Yeah, the thing to make it possible. It makes absolutely no sense. But Gianni, it's such a huge pleasure having you come down to Wall Street Silver. Where could people connect with you?
Well, I'm on Twitter, not so active there, but my book that I put out in 2016 is having a little bit of revival now. So these themes
Nice.
are still very current. You
Where
can
where
find it
can
on audible.com. It's on in ebook. It's on Amazon paperback, hardcover. And I've just been skimming through it myself 8 years later. The themes are still very current.
wow.
And people have to be, I think just look at these things on a medium to longer term. But if you don't put capital at risk, you don't get the return. So if you're
Yeah.
looking at making 5%, this is not the place to be playing. But just look at the DNA or the stock performance of any company, any of your favorite juniors, and look at where the money's been raised.
Yeah, I
That's very
highly
important.
that
Who holds the shares, and then you can see where the opportunity is.
absolutely. I highly recommend everyone to follow Gianni. Go check out his books. I'll put the links in the description below. But Gianni, thank you so much for coming down to Wall Street Silver. It's such a huge pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
Talk to you soon.